Okay, so this will cover questions 8 and 9. Again, this might not help you directly with your homework, but these questions could come up in a future lesson, so I still wanted to cover them with you. So to begin with here, question 8 has an error. It says inches. This should all say feet on this picture. There's no way a garden will only be 88 inches long if it's like a big part of Millennium Park. So this would be adorable if there was a Pythagorean garden, wouldn't it? And you're trying to figure out the amount of dirt you need to plant to make the garden, and it tells you a couple things about the shape of the garden itself, as well as how much a square feet a bag of dirt covers. So, a couple things here. If you watch the original video, it's always helpful to know what your goal is. And your goal in this case is to find the number of bags of dirt. And what we talked about in the previous video is anytime you need to find a number of something, like a number of bags, kind of looks like this question. You're probably going to have to find the area of the big shape, in this case, the triangle, and divide it by the amount of area one bag occupies. So how we're going to find this, the number of bags is always going to be equal to the area of the big shape, the triangle, divided by the area that one bag fills. And we know one bag covers 16 square feet, so that's nice. And second, if you forgot, area of a triangle's formula is 1/2 base times height. So for area of a triangle, this would be its base, this would be its height because it's a right triangle. So I would have 1/2 times x times 88. So now, looking at this problem, the only missing piece is x. So now that you have that set up, you know that your goal is to solve for x. Now, it's called Pythagorean garden for a reason. You probably have to use Pythagorean theorem to answer this question. So this is a situation where you might know what you have to do for the word problem. We know what we need to do, but there's like a side step you have to do first before you can jump right in and figure that out. So what we have to do off to the side here is, what's this? Now, if you remember, for Pythagorean theorem, we always labeled our sides as A, B, and C. Conveniently, B, the base, happens to be B in Pythagorean theorem as well. So what we're going to have to do here is solve for that missing side. So let me zoom in here, and let's take a look. So if you remember, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. So you have to do 88 squared plus x squared equals 137 squared. All right, now, big numbers here. 7744 plus x squared equals 18,769. We are going to subtract this number on the left, the 7744. That's going to leave you with the following. You're going to have x squared equal to 11,025. And lastly, if you take the square root, luckily it's a whole number, x is 105. And again, feet. So now that I know that's the answer for x, I can simply plug that in right over here. All right. So again, once you know that, we're going to substitute x in there and figure out the number of bags this would have to be. So if you multiplied all that on the top, divided by 16, you'd end up with 288.75. But again, we talked about always rounding that up. So you would need 289 bags of dirt to cover this. And this was asked as a separate question. Sometimes it just asks it all as one, which can be tough. Because if you notice, there was a lot of steps here. Technically, the first thing we did was we set it up. But then you had to do Pythagorean theorem here as well. So this was something you did off to the side. Then you were able to answer it. Now this then follows up and says a bag of dirt costs $5.99. And you're always going to take that price times the number of bags you have. And this is money, so we're going to round to the nearest hundredth. That comes out to 1,731.11. All right. Now, question 9, just like we saw with trapezoid, you can always break these shapes down into their component pieces. So this is a kite. And if you were kind of stuck on this question and didn't know there's a formula for the area of a kite, you could have found the area of this triangle, then you could have found the area of this one, and this one, because they're pairs, like 1 and 2 are the same, and 3 and 4 are the same. But that's a lot more work than you need to. So let me share something with you. The area of a kite, everyone, there is a formula for it, and the area of a kite is 1/2 times the length of one diagonal times the length of the second diagonal. And if you recall, diagonals in a kite go from end to end. So that would be one of the diagonals right there. We can call that D1 if you want. And D2 would be going from here to here. All right, so that said, diagonal 1, you would have to add 6 plus 18. And 6 plus 18 will give you 24. That's going to be the length of diagonal 1. I'm going to bring down the 1/2. And then D2. Now notice they only wrote 8 by one of these. But technically, if you remember, with a kite, they're symmetric over this big diagonal. So this would also be 8. And 8 plus 8 is going to give you a total length here of 16. So if I multiplied these all through, 1/2 times 24 times 16, the area of this kite is going to be 192 square inches. So I kind of jumped in without actually telling you what the question was asking. My bad, I was just excited. But it says here, a kite making company needs material. They're not just making one kite, they plan to make 1,000. So this didn't have too many additional steps. The first thing we did was, what's the area of one kite? The second, just multiply that number by 1,000. And the amount of material they will need is 192,000 square inches. All right, so again, might not see that on the homework necessarily, but it's still good practice. You could very well come across a kite question or one that involves Pythagorean theorem in the coming assignments.